Hi, and welcome to our first episode of Pop is Life. I'm your Korean teacher, Ong Hui Jung, and today I'll be explaining Korean word order and some of the grammar that goes along with it. Let's get started. In English, a simple sentence structure would be subject, verb, object. For example, a simple sentence would be, I like movies, with the subject being I, the verb being to like, and the object being movies. However, in Korean, the sentence structure is a little different. It would be subject, object, and then verb. So it would go,
저는 영화를 좋아해요. I like movies.
the subject, 저, the object that you are liking is 영화, and the verb is 좋아해요 or 좋아하다. So these last two syllables are called particles, and Korean has a lot of them, but don't be intimidated. Particles help indicate which grammatical part of the sentences certain words are, which isn't really necessary for short sentences like the one we just used, but as you improve and your sentences become longer and more complicated, particles can become very important. The first particle I use is a topic marking particle, which usually indicates the specific subject of the sentence. However, it can also imply that you're talking about none other than, nothing but, or as for. In this case, I was implying that although I cannot speak for anybody else, I personally like the movies. 저는 영화 좋아해요. This is what would be called the topic of the sentence. This particle has two forms that are very simple, 은 and 는. If the noun you are making ends in a vowel, you will use 는. If it ends in a consonant, you will use 은. For example,
Strawberries are sweet. 딸기는 달콤해요. Watermelon is refreshing. 수박은 시원해요.
there is another particle that marks the subject of a sentence, but it doesn't have the same implication. It simply marks the subject. The particle also changes depending on whether the noun it follows ends in a vowel or a consonant. If the noun ends in a vowel, it will be ga, but if it ends in a consonant, it becomes i. Here are some examples.
The orange is delicious. 오렌지가 맛있어요. The bag is pretty. 가방이 예쁘네요.
The last particle we'll cover today is the object marking particle, which, as the name suggests, indicates the object of the sentence. The rules for this particle are exactly the same as the others. If the subject ends in a vowel, you'll use l, but if the subject ends in a consonant, you'll use ul. In my original example, the object of the sentence was 영화, movies. Therefore, I use the object marking particle l.
영화를 좋아해요.
Lastly, in Korean, there are varying levels of formality. One very formal that you can use only with people in a much higher position than yourself or to somebody you really respect. One semi-formal that you use to people you don't really know or people who are older than you, and informal, which you would use when talking to people who you are close with or who are younger than you. Formality shows up in the form of verb endings. If you take the verb 있다, which means to be, you can change it to 있습니다, which is the most formal, 있어요, less formal, as well as a more common version, 있어, if you're speaking informally. The 니다 ending is an easy way to identify the sentence is super formal. A semi-formal usually ends in 요. Informal sentences can either leave out the 요 ending entirely, replace it with ya, or stay in the dictionary form. Let's see if you can identify what level of formalities these sentences are. 잘했어요. That means you did very well. Our lesson for today is almost over, so let's take a look at what we learned. Korean word order goes from subject, object, verb, instead of subject, verb, object. There are three main particles that Korean sentences use. The topic marking particles, 은 and 는, the subject particles I and ka, and the object marking particles and l. There are also 3 levels of formality that are commonly used in Korean, which are usually in the form of verb endings. The very formal ending, ida, which is used only to people you really respect. The more common and less formal, yo, ending that you would use to anyone you don't know or anybody who is older than you. And the informal ending, which leaves off the yo and either replaces it with ya or the dictionary form da. Be careful using the informal speech with anybody other than a child without asking them first because it may come off as rude. Thanks for joining me on Pop is Life. I hope to see you again on the next episode. 잘 가요.